Well, hello again, everyone. Kent Blacksher here hosting yet another Data Jam session, and I couldn't be more excited for the panel we've assembled for you all today. Joining us to talk about, well, the ever-shifting kind of role and the importance of the role of cleansing transactional data, which we've seen so much in the data landscape over the last few years, and much of which we've covered as it pertains to our particular vertical in the last few Data Jam sessions. We thought it'd be really important to talk about, well, transaction cleansing and cleansing of merchant data and all sorts of that area as it pertains to really the FI space and things like that. So we've assembled a crack team of much smarter individuals than I on this session. So without any further ado, let me introduce them. Joining us from Snowflake is their senior solutions engineer, John Thuma. John, a pleasure to have you today.
Hey, nice to meet you and see you. I'm really excited to be here and talk about data and analytics, especially in the banking financial services sector. I did bring my work boots today, so we're ready to go. I've got about 30 years in this business, so I go way back, SQL Server 4.x, way back when it was still a Sybase product, really. And I've traveled throughout the whole data universe. When it comes, I'm a walking almanac of different historical uselessness that really can really shine a light on where we are today, and it's exciting. Glad to be here. Glad to be working with you.
I'm delighted, and for those of you who haven't met John, now you know why I'm so fired up about this panel, because he's awesome. Also joining us, our own VP of Data and Analytics, the one, the only Mark Lair. Mark, always a pleasure.
Thanks, Ken. I'm even more excited than you and John combined for this session. Been looking at transaction data for 13 years, and so it's a topic that I love to talk about and looking forward to share with other people besides my wife and kids today.
I love it. I love it. And also joining us, and honestly, someone I've worked with for the better part of 9 years now, so that's more of a testament to his inner strength than anything else that he's still around. Our own VP of Enterprise Architecture, Lance Cuthbert. Lance, what can I say? Just so excited to have you today.
Thank you, Ken. And I'm really happy to be here. Yes, it's been 9 years that you and I have been working together. So far back when we started, I think we both had hair. So
your words are coming off a little aggressive today. I'll take that and run with it. And you're accurate. You're accurate. Well, without further ado, let's get started. I want to kick it off by I think I'll point to you virtually, John. If you can you kind of set the scene for, well, where your thoughts are on the industry right now? And Mark, Lance, when he's done, I'd certainly love your take as well. Just give us that overview of what you think is kind of the lay of the land right now, and where do you think things will continue to go?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, the state of banking today and retail banking and, core banking, checking accounts, savings accounts, retirement accounts, all those things, they're up for massive disruption. Over the next 10 years, you won't even recognize what banks look like today. Gone will be the physical side of banking, right? Things like, you got big tech coming in too. So these things are big, right? So you're going to be able to pay and we already are able to pay and cash a check with these things. In fact, one major fintech company just did a study, said 41% of the people have changed the way they've interacted with their bank. They're no longer going into the bank. They're trusting the applications, the mobile apps. They're trusting the websites, right? And that's a multi-generational thing. That's not just isolated to the younger generation. Everybody did. And there's reasons for that. COVID disrupted everything, and we're never going back, right? And before COVID, so there's really three things. Before COVID, the data revolution occurred, right? Big data and data science and all this stuff, all this banter. But, what really caused the catalyst was COVID-19, right? And now that we're coming out of COVID and we're in a post-COVID world, there's things that are really affecting us. These things are going to go away, I think. And not to mention they're going away already with the inflation that we're dealing with, right? So, and these things too, right? These things, these credit cards and plastic things, the physical things, the brick and mortars are going away, and they were before COVID, right? And that just accelerated the whole thing. And I think, and this is my big, I'm going to be very provocative here, so everybody put your seatbelts on and put your helmets on. Might upset some people with what I'm going to say. ATMs will be the payphones of the 1990s. They're going to go away. So, gone are physical things, and we need to really to one big thing. And if I have a concept of what we're going to talk about today is data is your biggest asset, period. And that's what we're about. And that's why Segment and Snowflake working together are so critical and so important to the future of banking, because startups are coming. Big tech is here, right? And it's going to be a different universe in 10 years. So that's my opinion.
Oh, I love it, and that's why you're here, and definitely thought provoking, but in line with what we're seeing, right? In line with what we're seeing. Lance, because you're next on my screen, I'm going to roll to you for kind of your thoughts as it pertains to what you're seeing and what do you see in the industry right now?
Well, I think John touched on it a little bit. Is the trust that customers are starting to have with having their data out there for these types of analytics, for this type of data analysis. Being an information security officer in a past life, these kinds of things always scared us because we didn't want people accessing our customer data. We were always concerned about making sure we had high walls around all of that data. And it was great from a data security standpoint, but it really limited the usage and the usefulness of that data. And I think as we are progressing with technologies and the ability of the technologies to provide the accessibility to the data, but also keep the security of that data intact while you're doing that is really huge. And then I think just that trust that people are developing, and I think part of that trust is coming through regulatory acts as well too. Things like the CCPA, GDPR over in Europe. This is showing that and making institutions conform to security and not just be the wild, wild west with customers' data out there.
Nope, that certainly makes perfect sense. Mark, your thoughts, you're totally on the data side as well. Where do you see the industry kind of right now?
I mean, I would echo almost everything John said. He had more props than I do, but we see exactly the same thing in the data. The competitive pressure from the fintechs that banks and credit unions are facing right now is incredible. I've got a team of 6 library scientists who are looking at transaction data on a daily basis, and they're pulling out new fintechs all the time. Buy now, pay later is new, but that's like a year-old example at this point, and that's just one of many that are coming in waves that banks and credit unions have to respond to. And so in an atmosphere where decision making, things change too quickly today, and you can't sit around and pontificate, and you have to use data to make decisions. I like to use professional sports as an analogy of probably an industry that was a little bit ahead of the curve. I was an economics major, Kent. I'll tell you a short story. In 2003, working in an honors thesis or something, and my professor gave me the worst advice ever. He said, "Don't no one do any more baseball papers. We're done with baseball. That's all been done." This is in 2003. Turn on a baseball game today, and you have 4 infielders on the right-hand side, and the other side's totally empty because they've embraced analytics and they know that it's pretty likely that batter against this pitcher, if you put the ball in a certain spot, it's going to ground out to the right side, and so that's where they're going to.
That's exactly right.
And the teams that have embraced that, you can see it in the results. They're doing better, and so other industries, and I'll bring that to FIs, need to, and they're starting to embrace the same thing. You got to look at the data.
Yeah, and you that's a perfect analogy. I love that baseball example. You were talking about cleansing transaction data, and I wanted to point to Lance because this is an area I know Lance spends a lot of time as well. When you think of that, and you think of like merchant payments and so forth, can you kind of just level set what goes into that process of cleansing? And then Mark, I'll come to you in and around why you think it's so important and what are we seeing others do with cleansed data. But Lance, can you set the scene for the process, what it takes for those teams to get into that?
Sure. And it's not an easy area to start dipping your toes into that water. It's very difficult. And it all starts with and it seems almost too simple, but just getting the data. How do we get the data, and what are the mechanisms of receiving that data? Is it via an API? Is it via a batch type of process? Okay, so you need somebody, a provider that can, fit your needs as to how you can provide the data to them for processing. The other thing is also the type of data. What kind of transactions are we going to be processing here? Is it just going to be debit and credit card swipes? Or are we going to be doing ACH, bill pay, recurring payments? So trying to cover that whole scope of the different types of transactions that we could glean important information from if only those transactions were cleaned and categorized. Then you kind of get into the actual, meat of the matter, which is starting with the data cleansing. We've all seen those strings that are on our debit card or credit card statements, and they're very verbose sometimes. They're very ugly. They have a lot of strange characters and numbers, and you almost need a doctorate from MIT to understand what they are. And that's where we start cleaning things out of those transactions, trying to get down to the root of the transaction, removing a lot of the noise from that transaction. Once we get down to that, then you can actually start doing some matching, right? You can go against, and what Segment uses is a human supervised and human developed taxonomy of all of these different merchants. So we currently maintain a taxonomy that has over 170 million variants in it that allows us to do that matching. And matching is great, but you also have to maintain the granularity of that matching as well too. So if we see a transaction for Uber 4 or 5 years ago, that would have been fine because it was Uber rideshare. But now you have Uber rideshare, you have Uber Eats, you have Uber Freight. So you want to be able to get down into, the granularity of that particular merchant, and then also being able to provide categories. The analysis that someone may want to do on that data isn't going to be just at the level of Uber. They may be interested in people that are using ride sharing services or whatever, but using those categorizations allows you to expand your analysis of that data. All of this is great, but it has to be accurate. So how do you make sure that it's the results that you're giving back are accurate? And Segment accomplishes that we're constantly monitoring those accuracy rates. We're constantly monitoring to make sure that we're maintaining the level of accuracy that our customers demand. And we do that with testing with large data sets, statistical samples, and it's just an ongoing process to make sure that we're always hitting it at the highest accuracy. Yep. And then it kind of gets down to also the speed, scale, and security. The old joke used to be it can be fast, it can scale, and it can be secure. Now pick two, right? Because you couldn't have all three in the old world, right? But with some of these, new platforms, these new technologies, with the advent of Snowflake, you now don't have to make that decision. You can be scalable, it can be fast, and it can be secure.
You nailed it, right? You nailed it. Mark, I want to point to you, particularly on the taxonomy side, and then John, I'm gonna get you lined up just behind that. But Mark, can you talk a little bit more about what Lance was framing up as it pertains to the more of the use cases we're seeing? What are institutions doing with this? Are they taking this cleansed data for just analytics? Are they tying it into warehouses? What's the play for the typical institution?
Sure. So everything Lance said is exactly spot on. And once you go through that process, then it is about the use cases. What are you going to do with all this great cleansed, categorized, contextualized data? So we're seeing these change. New ones pop up all the time, but a few that we're talking about that are of particular interest to banks and credit unions. There's a lot around financial wellness. So how do you understand the challenges or the new opportunities another way to think of it, that customers or members are going through. Cryptocurrency is a great example. That's something that's been in the headlines for the last 6-7 years. Bitcoin's worth $40,000 today. Still kind of fringy, but we're seeing in the data when we cleanse, we're cleansing and identifying cryptocurrency exchanges where people are putting dollars in to buy those cryptocurrencies. We're seeing 2 to 3% of customers at any given institution are participating in those exchanges, and it correlates quite well with the price of a Bitcoin, which everyone knows is pretty volatile. So that's interesting as an alternative investment space. From a financial wellness perspective, are those dollars that a bank can bring under management? Is there just advice around taxes or risk or diversification that an investment arm of an institution can bring to those cryptocurrency investors? So that's one great use case. Buy now, pay later, we already spoke about. That's something that we've continually seen growing over the last 18 months. Pretty reliably. That's another kind of financial wellness. Up to now, I think this is going to change. That's debt. That's consumer debt, really, that's not showing up on credit reports, and it's really easy for people to get. I'll use a prop here. Ken, I'm going to own this mug in 3 more months after I make the payments. But that's how easy it is. Anything you buy online, you can split into 4 payments, and it's almost mindless to do. But consumers can get themselves into trouble by taking on too much of that debt. So financial wellness is one theme, and then you can dig into the data as well to figure out how to make money. So one use case we're pretty excited about and is resonating with our customers is looking at subscription payments that customers are making. That's 2-pronged. That ties back to financial wellness. Do they have a lot of subscription payments that they've just forgotten about and can be notified? So the cleansing can help identify those. But also when we look at subscriptions and look at the payment type, people are paying those subscriptions via ACH. That's an opportunity for an institution to reach out and say, hey, switch those payments over to a debit card, and we can get interchange revenue based on that. And because it's the subscription, that represents an annuity for the institution. So not only financial wellness there, but again, an opportunity to make more money. And then the last thing I kind of like to tie in there is we can look at things like philanthropic giving. What's the opportunity there? Well, let's know what's important to my customers. So when I go try to get them to change their fitness membership from ACH to a debit card, maybe I offer I'm going to make a $5 donation to a charity that's important to them. So it can be tactical, but it also it tells you what's important about your customers. That's just scratching the surface. When we're looking at millions of transactions flowing through an institution, it is an extremely rich data set from which institutions can pull those use cases.
No, I believe me, I know I see this in my day-to-day when I'm talking to institutions who want to talk about better ways to leverage data. Absolutely. John, I want to switch gears and get over to you. I know we had seen the announcement around, Snowflake and Segment and working together, but I want to lean on your expertise here. What were you kind of looking to accomplish or solve with this partnership? And I have a sub question for you. If I recall, and I haven't heard this, but I was told by a little birdie you have an interesting story about why you thought specifically of our organization around that concept. But the floor is yours.
No, absolutely. I mean, Snowflake is all about data and unlimited scale of data, as well as unlimited compute of data, and being able to segregate compute from compute. That means I can load data while the Segment data processes and cleanses the merchant descriptions, and it doesn't disrupt my business intelligence users. It doesn't disrupt my data scientists. We have an environment that scales. Just the other day, I was working with a customer, and we moved them over from Hadoop. I won't, disparage any of my competition, but we moved them over from a flavor of Hadoop into Snowflake, and we released it out to the public, so the user community, and the feedback was just, wow, where's this been, right? These queries used to take 8 hours to run. Now they run in 8 minutes. They run in 8 seconds. They even said, this is hilarious, unhappy Carl isn't unhappy anymore, or he's happy right now. So when you have a happy Carl, that's a happy data user, that's amazing. So the point of this is how do I exploit data? And part of that is exactly what Segment does. They help cleanse data using a very difficult process that I've built in other organizations in other lifetimes. We've done this merchant cleansing business, and it's not something that's one and done. You don't finish and everything goes away. They have years and years and years, probably a lot of people years invested in doing this. And that's what it takes. You are never done with what Segment offers. Merchant cleansing, lifestyle, key lifestyle indication, things like that take a constant set of data scientists and library scientists to look at and monitor. And from my perspective, this partnership, you bring together the cloud platform, the cloud data platform that supports data engineering, data lake, data warehouse, data science, and of course our app marketplace, which is coming out. And I'm excited about this partnership because they're going to be one of the first. Segment is going to be one of the first or near first partners to bring a solution to the app marketplace, and we already have a data marketplace. And so this is an exciting time. And what it does is, as we come out of the COVID-19 and what I call the post-COVID era, we are entering into a new era, and that's inflation, high gas prices. Knowing your customer, knowing how their behaviors change is going to manifest in your ability to have a better conversation with your customer. And that's what Segment does. So as gas prices and inflationary pressures start to affect all of us, how does that affect the way we spend money? Are we buttoning down? Are we spending smarter? Are we not, vacationing? Are we not buying new cars? Are we buying used cars? What are we doing to manifest these behaviors more intelligently? And it's the unlimited scale, the unlimited set of compute, and solutions like Segment that allow us to really understand what the voice of the customer now is, because the customer is not coming into the bank anymore. So, gone are the days where I walked in the bank, I opened the door, I walked in the bank with my wife and maybe my little son. I walk in the seat to the right, there's Betty, she's my banker, I've known her for 10 years. I go up to Betty and hey, and she did my mortgage, she did my house, she set up my 529s for my kids' education. She knows me, and I walk up to the teller. I have that one-on-one interaction. Those things are gone and they're locked. Now, today, I use these, and I already pointed at one of these, and I'm using this and all that. Now my conversation with the bank is all electronic. It's all data. And so I have to mine that data in order to have better conversations, marketing conversations, know your customer conversations. And it's a better conversation because you actually are manifesting it based on tastes and qualities that you can refine from their data pattern. And that is really what Segment offers me, at least my understanding. I've known Segment for quite some time now. I've known them 5+ years now. And they're a great group of people and they're very smart. And I've challenged them, I've pushed them, but they've always come through. And, I've used them both as a customer and as a partner. And I'm just so excited to see that they're coming and they're going to be one of the first apps on our app marketplace.
Excited to hear that. I do have to ask, what was the story? What was the story about how you thought of Segment? And by the way, appreciate the kind words more than you knew.
Yeah, I mean, really, the story is exactly what I said. You walk into your bank. Do I really know what my customer wants? Does my customer really want a Heloc loan, or do they really want a mortgage? No, they want a better house. They want to add on to their house. They want to go to Home Depot. They want to buy some stuff. Maybe they want to contract out. I mean, being able to understand that allows me to do that. But the other thing is my next best action. My next best action may not be a new product. It may not be a new mortgage. It may not be a new credit card. It may not be that. It may be, we know John Thuma enjoys steak and wine. So let's give him, in his interaction with us, maybe it comes through the mobile app or it comes through his web page when he logs in. It comes in the form of, hey, John, we know you love steak. Try this recipe and pair it with this wine, right? And off you go. So you can still manifest relationships because of the things that segment offers and key lifestyle indication, as well as merchant cleansing, we know a lot about the next best action that we can give. And that improves our marketing outcomes, our ROI. And now with inflation and potentially stagflation coming up, how is that going to manifest in changes in behaviors? And how do we react to that as an institution?
I love that. Sorry, Ken, I'm going to jump in, but
go.
The steak example is great. What consumers, I think, really crave today is an experience. And banks and credit unions have the advantage of all this data. And it's no accident that the other a lot of fintechs out there are coming with free services. Like Credit Karma, get a free credit score, but link your accounts. And it's because they want the data so that they can deliver these types of things. But John, you hit the nail on the head. Institutions have to be having these digital engaging in the digital conversation. And every time a consumer swipes their card or pays a mortgage payment or does any transaction that you're getting a record, they're telling you something. And are you going to listen? And you should. It's important.
Well, and a real world example, and this ties back to kind of what Lance was talking to when we're thinking about things like, well, I guess information value, right? Sometimes it's merchant that is important to an institution, but other times it's the category. For example, if Lance has routinely been paying his mobile phone bill at Verizon through the ACH or whatever at an institution, and suddenly they see that payment is gone, they may be alarmed. Oh, we're losing primary FI status, or Lance is going through some sort of financial hardship. When the category of just mobile phone payments would have picked up the fact that he just switched from Verizon to AT&T, right? So again, just piggybacking on what you're all saying, sometimes the cleansing piece, it's the merchant that becomes important, but sometimes information value is a little more broad than that. Kind of piggybacking on what John was saying about, knowing the institution needing to know the individual much better than they often currently do. I do want to shift gears to a term that we've heard a lot about, and I'll start with you, John, about the data cloud. Obviously with Snowflake, what is this? Why is this different than, say, an AWS or Azure or Google Cloud? What are some of the misconceptions people have about this space? And what's it kind of look like in the future?
No, absolutely. I mean, what is the data cloud? I mean, Snowflake is the data cloud, right? The easy button, what I call the easy on-ramp to manifesting data exploitation for your organization and your institution, right? Continue to use the tools you love. We don't want to disrupt everyone. Keep using Tableau with Snowflake. Keep using Talon. Keep using Elation. Keep using Informatica. Keep using Power BI. We have a set of JDBC, ODBC drivers that you don't have to abandon the products you love. The other big thing, use the languages you know, right? Now, of course, we support ANSI SQL. So almost every institution has an ANSI SQL person, small to big, right? But now we have, through our Snowpark implementation, Python abilities, right? The ability to, everybody moves their data to the analytics or the data science platform. Gone are those days. With Snowpark, what you can do is move the algorithm down to the data and do it at scale, right? And do it at mass scale. And that means you don't have to sample, right? And we don't have to move the data, so it's governed, it's secure, it's there. We also support Scala and Java. So use the languages you know in-house. And Python and Scala are two of the most popular data engineering and data science languages out there. And this enables you to modernize your stack, right? We have massive partnership with Anaconda. So that means you can use Jupyter Notebooks to interface with Python and Kafka connectors. We also have relationships with like DataRobot, Dataiku, H2O, and SageMaker. And they actually push their processing down into Snowflake, where they can manifest out advanced data science techniques down into the environment. And of course, we work across the same experience across AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, right? And you can also fail over. You can replicate your data from AWS into Azure if you want to, and fail over to Azure, and also redirect all your client interfaces. And finally, across all of your data. Back in November, we launched our unstructured data capabilities, and we have some excellent semi-structured capabilities as well through JSON and XML. and whatnot. But our JSON parsing and our array processing is fantastic. And of course, our fully structured data that nicely fits into rows and columns like Excel. And then I think one of the biggest things that people don't know about Snowflake is that we have a data marketplace and an excellent data sharing ecosystem, and it's exploding. It's exploding. So you know how you have to move a lot of data, like let's say you wanted to, move a terabyte of data, it's going to take a while to download. You have to FTP it, you have to do all that. And then you have to know how to load it into your database tables. That takes a special kind of skill set and an infrastructure that can support that, let alone a network that can support that download. Well, all that goes away with our data exchange and our data marketplace. And that's exciting. And then now with Segment being one of the first apps that's going to be available in our app marketplace, that really defines what the data cloud is. For me, the data cloud is a single pane of glass, which is Snowflake, that supports data engineering, data lake, warehousing, data science, and applications, and of course, our data sharing aspect. Does that help demystify some of that for you?
Absolutely. What would you say for the viewers right now who maybe aren't in this space? What are the misconceptions? Like, you did a great job laying out what it is, but what are the misconceptions people have before they take that step, if you will?
Yeah, I think, fear. They're afraid, right? If I move to Snowflake, what kind of transition is it? Well, if you're familiar with ANSI SQL is a defined standard that is supported by, SQL Server and Oracle and Netezza and Teradata and things like that. If you know that language, you're going to be right at home with us. There's always constant, there's a capability to manage your cost of spend and compute. There's guardrails we can throw up to make sure that, compute doesn't run forever, that spend doesn't run forever. There's things that we can do to manifest and control costs, right? And I'll be more than happy to walk anyone through those things. I mean, there's all kinds of guardrails. But I think the biggest thing is that, is the flexibility. The neat thing about Snowflake is that every week or every couple of weeks, we're launching new capabilities into the product. Scala just got GA'd, unstructured data got GA'd. The cool thing is that just naturally flows into the environment, and the customers can take advantage of that immediately. And there's no bill. There's no extra bill for that. And it's very, very simple to use us, not to mention no more guessing at hardware or even virtual hardware, virtual servers. With us, if I want to expand a cluster, I can, and it can do it automatically, and it can shrink automatically. I can also write something that can blow a cluster up if I want to, and horizontally and vertically scale that cluster. So, and it's really a powerful demo. And I welcome anyone who wants to sit down and go through it with me.
Awesome. Absolutely. I'm hopeful people will be taking you up on that, because it is very, very slick. I want to shift gears, kind of go back a little ways to something you were talking about, Lance. You had mentioned briefly things like GDPR and aspects around that as it pertains to, well, things like data privacy. We've been talking a lot about the cleansing of data, talking a little bit about some of the use cases and why these solutions are so powerful. And John and Mark and you too, Lance, have done a great job of setting the scene for what's coming next and why everyone needs to be paying attention to this, particularly in banking FI space. But can you spend some time talking about data privacy collectively, how it works with something like Snowflake, right? I mean, I know there's a lot to cover. I'm not asking you to take 30 minutes, I promise. But can you give us kind of what are you seeing? What are the best practices? And how does this all kind of meld together? And Mark, I'll cue you up kind of right behind that. Would love your feedback as well.
Well, sure. And I think the really important thing to note is everything that John just laid out in relationship to the features and functionality of Snowflake is all done under an umbrella of security. One of the things that drew us to Snowflake is their attention to the different regulatory and the different levels of security that you have to protect your customers' data. With Snowflake being PCI compliant, SOC 2 compliant, high trust compliant, ISO compliant, and I know there's a couple other ones, John, so forgive me, I can't remember
It's
them
okay.
all. But
You got a lot of them.
Yeah, and so that again helped us make that decision to move to Snowflake, because we knew that our customers' data would be secure, inherently secure. With our environment at Segment, we've taken great pains to make sure everything is secure from end to end. With Snowflake, you pretty much get that right out of the box, which is a wonderful thing. And then on top of that regulatory and compliance adherence, you also have additional features from a security standpoint, where you can actually put automatic masking of data. So as you're ingesting data, and if the system identifies that, hey, this could be a social security number, or this could be an account number, it will automatically mask it as you're bringing that data in. So certain people can see it unmasked, certain people can only see it as masked data. So that definitely helps with the overall security of the data that you're storing. The data at rest and data movement, it's all done over a secure channel. So the data, again, end-to-end security with that, which is really huge especially for a company like us, who's dealing with customer data. Now, granted, we don't take PII, but this ensures the security of that data. Another big piece of that John had mentioned that also lends to the security is the whole data sharing ecosystem that Snowflake gives to you. So what's really exciting about this, and how it could tie into merchant payment cleansing for us, is that as John was saying, in current situations, you have to generate a CSV extract and put that on disk somewhere, and then you have to send that via some sort of network connection, whether it be FTP or secure FTP. There's a whole lot of opportunity for something bad to happen with that entire workflow. Between data being corrupted or data being seen, a data breach, data artifacts get left all over the place like little breadcrumbs, and you don't want that, right? So with the data sharing ecosystem, whoever we're partnering with to do the MPC, they can share that data with us from Snowflake to our account in Snowflake, entirely secure. They don't have to generate any extracts. They don't have to do any ETL work. We don't have to worry about the wrong people seeing the wrong data inadvertently. So it just allows us for this whole process to end up being very secure, again, end to end.
And that's crucial. I mean, I would imagine. And Mark, I want to ask you your thoughts in and around this. When you think from your side of the org, and maybe even client facing, can you give us your lay of the land on the privacy aspects, not just of this, but collectively as it pertains to data?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably be foolish to think I can add any more value to the privacy conversation than Lance already added. But what strikes me just listening to Lance and John the last few minutes, John, you said earlier, nobody wants a Heloc, they want a new basement. This is exactly the same situation with data. Nobody wants a better network or security or all this stuff. These are all roadblocks to what they actually want, is insights about their customers and the ability to execute on better relationships and deliver a better experience. And everything John and Lance have just been talking about, I wasn't counting, but 20, 30 different roadblocks that have previously existed to this. And now Carl, who's pissed because it takes hours to run a query and it's running in 8 minutes, he's happy that his query is running faster, but he's also a hero to the business side of the institution. And if you think they were grumpy before, they were probably grumpy before too, and now they're delighted because they've got the tools to win against all these competitive pressures that institutions are facing. So that's what I think. That's what I think is exciting.
And it's all about keeping Carl happy. That's one thing we've learned today, and something I'm definitely going to take from this.
Well, it comes down to time value of data, right? I mean, some data, there's a range of data right now that's worth more. It comes down to time value of money. Same concept. Data right now is worth more than it was or will be a week from now. And that's a very important concept. The faster I can process all of my data, not just some of my data, all of my data, using tools like Segment and their merchant cleansing solutions. And they really have taken something that's very complicated and they've made it something that is reachable by smaller institutions too. So now these really advanced data science, that's why I fell in love with the second I met Segment's product. I didn't even know who these people were. I didn't even know who Lance was. I didn't even know who Rob
That's
was.
by design. That's by design. Just
I saw their interface and I'm like, I love this, right? Why? Because anyone can use it. You don't have to be a taxonomist. You don't have to be a taxidermist. You don't have to be a crazy person and a crazy scientist with wicked hair and you know, a lot of voodoo, and you don't have to be a unicorn. You can be a regular person. Look at their application, look at what it does, and understand how this can be used by your customer or by your people working in the institution. And you glean a lot of information about it. So the point I'm trying to make here is don't short yourself on limiting yourself to your data. Don't worry about the hardware. Don't worry about the cloud hardware, because there is cloud hardware. And a lot of these solutions, you still have to think about, well, how many nodes do I need? How many? With us, you just flex that out or shrink it down. It's really simple. But my point is the opportunity costs of time. You know, if something takes 8 hours, I have to wait for that to come back. What am I doing for those 8 hours? Well, I have to go do something else. I can't use my computer because it's busy doing something. But if it comes back in 8 minutes, I'm able to go, oh, I did the wrong thing. I fail fast or I succeed fast, and I move on to my next problem. And I can do that over and over and over, and I can iterate over and over and over. That's the value of being able to clean your data and cleanse your data in merchant cleansing solutions from Segment, but also the scale and rapid speed that Snowflake provides.
John, I'll come on top there with a specific example that we see in transactions that I think are really interesting is micro deposits, the test deposits. So you see a transaction to Robinhood or E-Trade. If it's $1,000, that's probably an investment. If it's 3 cents into your account, that's an indication that someone's just signed up. One of your customers has just signed up for E-Trade or Robinhood or any number of 100 different fintechs out there. That's something you want to know about pretty quickly.
Because I didn't even think about the competitive aspect of that, right? I mean, you know, as a banking institution, I can learn a whole bunch of, and please follow up with this, Mark. This is more of your thing, but I'll think, hey, who's not banking with me? Where's my money going, right? Is my money going to Ford Motor Credit? Is it going to Toyota, whatever? I can get a lot of that too, right?
Yeah, those I would say are some of our table stakes use cases where you're seeing where the competitive institutions, competitive mortgages, auto loans, student loans, really how is your customer or member interacting with the greater financial institution or financial ecosystem outside of the walls of your institution. Transaction data is going to tell you all of that.
Yeah, whereas before I'd know I'd have to walk into the bank, talk to my banker, my personal banker, maybe if I'm fortunate enough to have one of those, and they would be able to look at that only when I walked in, right? Now you look at the whole enterprise of accounts. You look at all of your accounts, and you can now start to look at trends and differences, but not at the individual level as well as at the macro level, right? To be able to glean the voice of the customer and look at things like inflation and stagflation and war and, you know, food prices and gas prices and what effects those are going to have on spending behaviors of your customers, because we're all going to have to tighten our belts because of all this.
Absolutely. That's a perfect example. And some of those practical use cases you guys were just talking about, I think I would imagine are of great interest to our viewers, particularly thinking about the competitive landscape and ways they can ascertain, you know, things like possible attrition or someone branching out to products and services that we offer internally that maybe we want to make sure we try to keep our hands on. But I want to shift to Lance, because we've been a great dialogue. I know we're kind of reaching the last little bit here, but I'm curious as to your day-to-day and your time with Segment. You talked about at the onset the types of data we're typically using for cleansing. You talked about maybe it's just ACH, maybe we're taking debit, bill pay, credit card data, a variety of different sources of data. If you're a bank or a credit union or fintech or someone who's watching this today, in your expertise, what are the common issues or concerns these organizations may have getting started, and or
Yeah.
what's the best way? Can it crawl, walk, run? Walk us through kind of, for someone
Sure.
who's really looking to get rolling, the best way to go about it.
Yeah, so kind of going back to our friend Carl that we've been using for this presentation, once upon a time, somebody probably came and tapped Carl on the shoulder and said, "Hey, we need all of this data. We want you to go collect all of this data. Go harvest it." And Carl went and did that, and then came back and said, "Okay, what's next, boss?" And boss said, "Well, Carl, go do analytics on it, right?" But I can't. I don't have the resources. I don't have the know-how. I don't have that expertise. What do I do, right? So I think, where a company or a financial institution needs to start working on that data strategy or that vision of, what data do we want to handle? How are we going to handle certain things like data inconsistencies, data duplication, the variety of data? Any FI out there, I'm sure, could point out that they have a loan servicing system and a deposit system, and the two are completely different. They don't talk to each other, but we want to take the data out of both and use them for some sort of common analytics. So how do we do things like that? And we've talked a lot today about data governance and data security, so we need to understand those things. So have a plan, develop your plan, develop your strategy, and then work that strategy, work towards that. And you mentioned, could it be a crawl, walk, run? Yeah, I absolutely. You can't. One of the phrases we always use at Segment is you can't eat the elephant in one bite. Right, you got to take small chunks and make it so that you're getting value immediately out of the resources that you're putting into it. And I think, speaking of resources, the other issues that they come up with are, the technical resources. We've talked about how Snowflake allows you to scale. It's on demand, the security, right? And these are things that are, without Snowflake in the picture, are very daunting tasks to somebody, because they have to try and figure out, okay, how much storage am I going to need? How much processing am I going to need? And these things are not easy to forecast, right? Especially for a small institution who may never have done anything like this before, right? They're going from Excel spreadsheets to an actual data warehouse. That's a pretty big leap, right? So you've got that, and then you actually have to have the people behind it as well too. You have to have the analytical know-how. You can have all of the data in the world, but if you don't have the right people to kind of help you tell the story from that data, it doesn't have the value that you want it to have, right? And then I think the other things that we've talked about as well too is the data security. Once you start collecting that data, and that becomes a very real thing that institutions have to be careful with, and definitely have to be cognizant of. And then we've also touched on this is, okay, great, I've got the analytics, I've got the data, I'm generating information. Now what the hell do I do with it, right? What are my use cases? How am I going to make that data actionable? Many of the times we talk to financial institutions, and they may have analytical processes that they're using right now, but by the time one side of the house gets those models built and does the analysis and gets the results to the other side of the house, the moment has passed them by. They weren't able to react to what the data was telling them. So, again, how do we make this data actionable? So I think those are some of the biggest hurdles. Yeah, for sure.
I think, what excuse me, let me add on to that, if you don't mind. Small to medium-sized institutions, the chasm was very big. They couldn't cross the chasm. It was the barriers to entry to these things, to data science, to things like Segment, to even, Snowflake. They were wide and hard to do. It took resources they couldn't afford. Now those chasms are shrinking, and it's much faster and easier to do, because the small institutions and medium-sized institutions want to do the things that the big institutions do. They want to create better audiences. They want to create greater engagement. They want to do marketing automation. They want to do closed loop analysis. They want to compare that to a holdout group. They want to have that next, version of their segmentation. They want to get to the micro segmentation, almost down to the individualized next best action, so they can personalize messages to their account holders. And they want to get beyond the net promoter score. And they want to manage defection. They want to see who's closing down, how do I get the credit card out of the sock drawer. And that's my dog and my doorbell. So anyway, but those are the things that the small to medium-sized institutions want to do. With the partnership with Snowflake and Segment, we enable that relationship to happen. Sorry.
Can you expound on that just a little bit more? How easy is it for someone to get started with Snowflake? Is this are you anybody and their brother can come and start? Is this exclusive? Is it what's it look like for someone to get in there? And I also want to think back on something. I thought you said something about the ability for Snowflake to actually do advanced data science within the platform. Can you? I'm just trying to bring it full circle.
No, I appreciate that. So how do you get started? First of all, you can go on snowflake.com. It's very good. You can sign up for a free trial, right? Anybody can do it. You go and there's a free trial. You'll see the button on our webpage, and we'll give you $400 worth of credits to run. You can load data, you can run queries, you can do all kinds of great things. Connect ODBC, connect, Tableau or Power BI or whatever, reporting or ETL tool you want to connect to it. And that's open to everyone, right? We encourage that. If, and then we have different sales teams and account teams that can work with you as well. So it's very easy to get started. Plus our documentation, if you go to docs.snowflake.com, you can see all of our documentation, and it's all laid out. Step 1, step 2, step 3. We have a variety of also learning artifacts and little short 5, 10, 15 minute videos that show you how to do things. It's very, very easy to use and very easy to manifest. And it's available to all of you, and anyone can do it. You asked, the next question was about data science. This is a very big area. We're putting a lot of investment here. We're now, it's called Snowpark. And what this means is that we can use Python and Scala, two of the most, popular languages. Python's probably the most popular language in data science and data engineering, to be able to, load data, engineer data without having to move your data to the analytic platform or to the ETL platform. You can perform those things using the most popular libraries that are out there at scale. So, we've pushed down the algorithm, the transformation down into the data, so the data doesn't have to leave the environment. So what that means, Lance was touching upon this, is all of our data at rest is encrypted, all data in motion is encrypted. And it's a single source of the governed truth. So that's why we're popular for the data lake as well. When you have all of that guarded by the encryption, the compression, when you have all of that guarded by role-based access controls and things that you know about SQL, but now you can exploit through Python and Scala and Java, you can build models that scale across your entire data ecosystem. Excellent.
That's awesome. Guys, the conversation has been mind-blowing for me. I can only imagine for our viewers in the vertical and elsewhere. Final few minutes here. We'll start with you, Mark, and then Lance, and then John. Any final thoughts, any views of industry, or any tips for those paying attention, things that maybe impact right now they could start looking at? But Mark, I'll turn it to you for your final thoughts.
I'll just circle back to the use cases. Again, that's what I think is really exciting. I've been in the data and the taxonomy and classification space for 20 years, and probably anyone in tech can sympathize with. There's kind of nothing more deflating than having a great idea. Like, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? And then hearing a bunch of, yeah, but we'll see you in 18 months. And it's like, oh. So it's just great. It's exciting to be able to again, from the data side, to have the data clean and be able to get in there and play and identify and look at use cases and see trends really quickly, things that are going to be able to drive real business value. So that's what I think is fun. And I'd encourage every institution, from the cheap seats, I think the number one tip is have someone who's going to look at the data. You got to get to know the data, immerse yourself in the data, and the solutions are going to help you do that and make sense of it more quickly so you can drive that business value.
Awesome. Thank you. Lance, same question to you. Any final knowledge nuggets or tidbits?
Yeah, well, I guess, as Mark talked about the use cases, I guess I feel compelled to talk about the technology. And with that, I would strongly suggest that everybody reach out to John to talk to them about what they can do with the Snowflake platform and what it offers them, and how they can turn all of those unhappy Carls into happy Carls. And I think Snowflake is a really good fit for any size business, small, medium, large. It has really helped Segment go further, faster than a lot of the platforms we've worked on.
Fair enough. John Thuma, end up with you and your happy Carls. Any final nuggets of knowledge and wisdom?
I think that's great. Happy Carls is important. Look, what Snowflake and Segment do is allow you to have a conversation with your data, to mine your data when you need to. We talked about time value of data, time value of action on your data. If I'm an enterprise institution, I need at any scale, any size, I've got to do those things. And I also want to know, because I'm not having those one-on-one interactions face-to-face anymore, if Jason loves golf, the Cleveland Browns, and steak, right? If Jason loves the Cleveland Browns, he loves pain. So I love the Cleveland Browns. We also want to know if we can make a better offer to Jason, maybe his COD is starting to mature, his certificate of deposit is starting to mature. And if we can make a better offer to Jason and also offer him a car loan, because he has his car loan with another bank or another financial institution. We can make those two things together and increase Jason's portfolio with the bank. And that's the kind of things I want to enable. It's not just speeds and feeds and wow, we can do all this cool gizmo stuff. We've commoditized the gizmos, right? Both of us. That's what Segment and Snowflake have in common. We've commoditized very hard things. Let's focus on your business problems. Let's focus on solving your biggest, nastiest thing that keeps you up at night and help your businesses grow revenue and grow activation and decrease costs. And if we can do all those three things, we're winning. And that's what we want to enable here.
Could not say it any better. What a perfect way to end this. And also kudos for you for getting a slight shot across the bow and about the Cleveland Browns. I owe someone $20 because I thought you might, but I'm glad you did nonetheless.
I love the Cleveland Browns. So congratulations on the 40th quarterback in 10 years. Congratulations. That's
fantastic. Gentlemen,
I'm a Baker Mayfield fan too. I'm like, what? No, give him a line. Anyway. We could probably do this whole data jam.
We should have another data jam Cleveland Browns session. Gentlemen, can't thank you enough so much. On behalf of John and Mark and Lance, this is Kent Blacksher saying thank you for joining us for this data jam session. Really appreciate the dialogue. We'll certainly be doing this again. Make sure you stay tuned to our socials and look for another session. But until then, everybody stay safe and thanks for joining us. Have a good one.